Okay. Hello, guys. Thank you for joining in this class of Kala Sarpa. We have not had the previous class because of some issues initially, and then the internet outage did not allow me to conduct it even in the regular weekday. Okay, but then we were covering Rahu in the third, and today we are supposed to look at Ketu in the ninth, right? So yeah, so let's begin the class with the usual Shanti mantra. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahana Bhunakato Saha Viryankara Vavahai Tejasvinadaditamastu Ma Vidavishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so I suppose we had done Ketu in the third house too with the example charts, isn't it? If you could just, if anyone could tell me this. I think we had done Ketu in the third along with the example charts. So we should be looking at Rahu in the fourth. Is it correct? Just let me refer back to my notes. Okay. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. So now Rahu in the fourth house. So that means Ketu will be in the 10th house. Okay. So Rahu in the fourth house is not good. Okay. And let's deal with the remedial part first. Okay. So if you have Rahu in the 10th house, the best remedy is to worship Sri Krishna. Okay. There is a mantra called Sri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. Okay. That is the mantra to do if Rahu is in the fourth house. Okay. Sri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. So 4 malas of this mantra. I'm just writing it down from in the chat box. Okay. Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. All right. So this is a very effective mantra if you have Rahu in the fourth house, right? And this is something that will prevent you from from getting cheated. Okay, because fourth house Rahu also represents problems with the heart. Okay, just like Saturn in Aries represents heart issues, similarly fourth house Rahu will also represent problems with the heart. Okay, fourth house Rahu can also represent problems with bones. All right, now Rahu, it represents desire and obsession, while Ketu, we know, it denotes ambivalence and detachment. And with Rahu in the fourth and Ketu in the 10th, it indicates a bias for establishing a home base. Okay, that you can also include property rights, you can also include patriotism, and some kind of tribal security. Okay, so security becomes very paramount, and this security sometimes comes at the cost of assuming public responsibilities, allowing governmental oversight, or respecting law and order. Okay, the fourth house represents the ground. Okay, that is the reason the fourth house is also looked at if you are indulged in agriculture. Okay, so it is the stambha or the pillar. Yes, it is one of the pillars upon which the lagna is planted. And because the fourth house represents the mother and the motherland, it also represents our foundation. Okay, and that foundation is represented literally in a residence, we call home, and metaphorically in the depths of our psychological self. Okay, so the fourth house has to do with happiness. All right. So if you have an afflicted fourth house, you'll find it very, very difficult to be happy, no matter wherever the other planets are placed. Okay. And fourth house is also the house of security. Okay. Whether the mundane midnight or the midnight of the soul. Okay. Here is where we experience our security or the lack of security. All right. And, Western psychologists, they call a bad fourth house, or Western astrologists call a bad fourth house as someone who experiences the dark nights of the soul very frequently. Okay. So if you have read Greg Braden and his works, he frequently uses this term, dark night of the soul. And this period can come whenever you have, dark nights of the soul. They usually come when you have either, Kantakshani or Sadesati periods running. Okay. So I had such a dark night of the soul way back in 2013, right, when I had broken up with my ex. And then, my mother passed on 10 days later. And then I could not appear in an examination because I had to be engaged with, with her death rituals. Okay. So in a span of, say, around 30 days, my entire life turned upside down. Okay. So that is the dark night of the soul. Now, if you have a weak fourth house, you'll find it very difficult to deal with this. Okay. But if you have a strong fourth house, it'll pass. All right. Now, when Rahu goes to the fourth house, Ketu automatically will occupy the 10th, which is, of course, the karma sthana. That means it is the place of your karma. Okay. And because Ketu is like Mars, we can expect warrior characteristics. Okay. Ambition for conquest, boldness, courage in the face of opposition, and also maybe even cruelty to cut through obstacles or to slay the enemy. But then this can go sideways. Okay. So Rahu and Ketu are both tamasic, as we know, but then the 10th house is the midheaven. So with Ketu at the midheaven, it assumes the greater visibility in carving out a role. And because Ketu is also ambivalent, the native may care very little for his or her reputation and may fall back to self-serving behavior. Okay. This means, such a native may indulge in wicked deeds that can be detrimental to his or her name. Okay. Now, the fourth house, it rules the breast and chest cavity. That includes the heart, lungs, liver, and upper portion of the stomach. And because the lunar nodes, they provoke eclipses that interrupt the natural light of the sun and moon. So Rahu's placement here can indicate irregularities amongst vital organs. Okay. So, fourth house Rahu may cause the heart to be subjected to various diseases, or, something called, I'm not getting the name. Okay. I'm not getting the medical name. It leads to irregular pulse rate. All right. This is a phenomenon that I have seen. Even if you learn medical astrology from me later on, you'll see how this fourth house Rahu can lead to an irregular pulse rate. I am not getting the name. Arrhythmia or something. I've completely forgotten. If it is not arrhythmia, it's something else. But that is the name as far as I remember. Okay. And you can also suffer from asthmatic, asthma in the lungs. Okay. Which of course is intermittent suffocation. And even the liver's production of enzymes may fluctuate if you have Rahu in the fourth house. Okay. And in Ayurveda, the stomach is the boss of the body, is the mother of the body. Okay. Why? Because it regurgitates gastric fluid into the esophagus, and that causes heartburn. Okay. And we have a phrase called acid reflux. Okay. What does it imply? It implies a reversal of the natural order, which, when I say reversal of the natural order, it means something moving backwards. Okay. So you can associate this with the backward movement of the nodes. Okay. Yeah. Now, psychologically, because the fourth house is the house of where the moon gets Digbala, so Rahu in the fourth may lead to mental disturbance, severe mental disturbances in the native. Okay. And in Vedic psychology, as I said, the fourth house represents the manas. Okay. So now manas is not Mercury. Okay. Manas is an aspect of the mind that is concerned with sensory perception and glandular regulation. It is ruled by the moon. Okay. And we can compare this to a computer's operating system that allocates memory and, which interface with programs. So the buddhi, okay, the buddhi handles the analytical tasks of the higher mind. This is Mercury. Okay. The manas, it operates on a primitive level. Okay. It monitors sensory input, and then it registers likes and dislikes. And it also, it also plays a prominent role in forming personality. That is the reason the moon is regarded as the most important planet in Vedic astrology, next to the sun. And because Rahu is a contrarian, it is the outcast among the grahas, and it is always retrograde. So its presence in the fourth house can indicate a potential for mental aberrations. Okay. And in the context of what I said, it might only affect the gland regulating functions of the brain. Okay. But then even minor irregularities of this limbic intelligence might provoke occasional malfunctions of the body. For example, the person can suffer from heart palpitations, unquenchable thirst, or even night sweats. Okay. Now, for serious mental disturbances, psychologists would demand more evidence. Okay. And Rahu in the fourth is one astrological signature. All right. But then if the fourth lord or the moon joins this Rahu, or if the moon is on this nodal axis, even if the moon joins Ketu, it actually builds quite a strong case for mental liberation. Okay. Similarly, if someone is having this Rahu in the fourth and Ketu in the 10th, and then the fourth lord or the moon goes into a Rahu nakshatra, then, it also indicates mental aberration. That means it would give this manas a nudge towards mental instability. Okay. Now, we must note that the condition of manas is not the most important topic here. Okay. Because, it takes a lot of psychological destabilization to drive the individual from neurosis to psychosis, right? And for that to happen, we might also need Saturn's influence on the fourth house, maybe on the fourth lord, or even maybe on the moon. Okay. So, the fourth lord, in some cases, the fourth lord or the moon may be compromised by sign or by house position, as I said. So, in all these cases, mental aberrations are the result. Okay. Now, if there are no serious ailments, if the native is lucky enough to survive this combination and go in without any kind of serious mental ailments, then the native might be thick-headed, closed to new ideas or perspectives. Okay. He or she may have a bias for wrong thinking. Okay. And may either apply more emotion over logic or vice versa. Okay. And this kind of, emotional application overriding logic will be commonly seen in personal relationships, in financial management, and also in political allegiances. Okay. So it also indicates that these natives, they may be unable to perceive reality. Okay. So Rahu is that illusion that tricks the eye. Okay. And because it tricks the eye, it manages to trick the mind into seeing something that isn't real. Okay. For example, we can take the old rope versus snake, conundrum, right? It is an example that, that you actually have a rope in front of you, but you are seeing it as a snake. So it means that, such a person is not able to correctly discern reality. Okay. But on the other hand, in the context of mental health, a delusion is a fixed false belief, right? Which is, it indicates resistance to reason or even confrontation with actual fact, as a, for example, as in case of a paranoia, okay, or a paranoid delusion. And all of this is indicated by Rahu. All right. Now, the fourth house is also the house of the mother. So the mother is a living symbol of the physical home, and and the heart. The mother is in the heart of familial love. So with Rahu in the fourth, the mother may be fickle-minded, may be irregular, may be peculiar, or even strange. Okay, the lady, such a mother may be obsessive in an overly protective way. We have the concept of helicopter parents who take parenting to extremes, right? Or the mother may have a laissez-faire attitude, providing too little protection or structure to the family. Okay, so whatever may be the case, there could be something compulsive something distinctive, fascinating, or even powerful about the mother. Okay. And such a lady can be adventurous, exotic, and even unpredictable. Okay. And less kindly, she may be a purveyor of sorts, seeking status beyond her experience, which she craves as a form of legitimacy. Okay. So, a false entitlement to privileges may center on home ownership, land deeds, or intense patriotism. Okay, I had a client with this combination with Rahu in the 4th and Ketu in the 10th, with a classic case of Kala Sarpa. And his mother was actually working as an escort quite late into her 50s. And that was quite surprising. Okay, the guy was from Europe, but he just confided me this, that his mother was working as an escort. And she thought that it was a very legitimate thing to do because, you know, it was supporting her family, or it was supporting her desires or passions, whatever, right? So, as students of astrology, our job is to study, not to judge. All right. Now, because Rahu is the proxy, it acts as the proxy of the house wherever it is placed. So, Rahu in the 4th, it may suggest a surrogate mother as well. Okay. Or it could suggest an adoptive mother, or maybe a stepmother, or maybe another family member who replaces a birth mother who died or left the marriage and family. Okay. Now, these natives, they may take pride in their ancestry. And, the roots of these natives, they portray a strong affinity for certain lands. But, often there is a shadow on the family, a past failure that the native feels honor bound to overcome. Okay. He may show excessive pride in his or her family. He or she may show excessive pride in his or her family reputation, or may be obsessed with keeping up the family business. Okay. So, in either case, these people, they hope to achieve what their parents could not. All right. The 4th house is very, very important. All right. It also indicates property. Right. So the native with Rahu in the 4th, he or she seeks privilege through property ownership, agricultural custodianship, environmental protection, ancestral lands, and patriotism in the name of homeland security. Okay. Such a native can also be a homeowner or a landlord, or patriot for whom property or vehicles is a security. And because Rahu has an insatiable appetite, these people, they may become overextended with more land than he can occupy, bigger houses than he needs, or more properties than he can manage, and also more vehicles than he or she can use. Okay, so it can represent the extremes. Okay, as we can see. So, if a person is psychologically vulnerable, such a person will erect boundaries of every sort to protect his vital space. So, as such, the native will want to establish physical boundaries. Okay, maybe borders or fences, or even ramparts or walls. Okay, even electrical fencing maybe around property or country or the environment for his security. Okay, so for peace of mind, these people, they may want legal boundaries to protect their families or tribes or even their constituency. Okay, so people with Rahu in the 4th, they identify with caretakers, with environmentalists. Okay, with housekeepers, with landholders, with property owners, and even watchmen. All right, because these people, they have an obsession with fences and borders. Okay, and despite this obsession, the native often will experience problems with property or vehicles or even his own countrymen. Okay, because Rahu is the outsider, and 4th house is your own country. Okay, 4th house represents all those that you can call your own. Okay, the 10th house, on the other hand, represents those things which do not belong to you but belongs to the world. All right. So with this Rahu in the 4th, these people, they may become obsessed with finding a community that feels like home. All right, it's like just like searching for an elusive Shangri-La, right? And this can make someone very eternally restless. All right, or maybe someone who spends a lot of time on Tinder. So much time that excessive choice makes commitment to a relationship unlikely, right? And as a result, the person may end up feeling unrest in his heart, or he or she may never feel completely at home. So, with regards to home life, Rahu in the 4th is not always domestic, because Rahu is that notorious wanderer. Okay, so there could be many moves in the life. And it also indicates people in military service or the diplomatic corps, okay, who are often subject to transfer, sometimes even overseas transfer. All right. And if someone is associated in the fields of academia or professional sports, such fields also demand relocation. And this is something that is supported by this Rahu in the fourth. Okay. And even if not influenced by family, the native may enjoy the gypsy life. Okay. Living here and there with little thought of settling down. Okay. For example, this placement gives a transient home life as a traveling salesperson, maybe as a long haul trucker, or someone who just wants to see the world. Okay. So, when this wandering Rahu in the fourth house can also indicate property in exotic gateway locations. Okay. Now, whatever one calls home, that personal living space can be diverse and eclectic, especially when sharing quarters with people they haven't chosen. For example, the communal life of college students. Okay. And despite a deep sense of roots, the native may also open up his or her home to strangers. Now, this Rahu in the fourth can also be very opportunistic. Okay. And it can indicate people who appropriate property which is not of their own. For example, there are a class of people who are house squatters or cattle rustlers or homesteaders or land speculators or conmen who commit property theft. And because Rahu is smoky, and it behaves like Saturn, so in some cases it is also oily. So in the fourth house, it can actually indicate a polluted home environment. Okay, for example, the pollution can come from coal or oil, or maybe a wood burning stove or furnace in the home, or maybe a neighborhood that's downwind or downstream of industrial factories contributing to air or water pollution. Okay. Now, the fourth house, we also know, is associated with education at a basic level. Okay, typically up to and including high school, maybe. And because Rahu is malefic and murky, this could imply a spotty education. Okay, so sometimes the native's education may be interrupted, or maybe the native may be forced to leave his or her education incomplete. Okay, such a native is very much vulnerable to career setbacks. And when the quest for sukha or happiness is blocked, such natives, they come to realize the value of education in creating security. Okay, so what it means is that after a fall from a certain position, these people, they may retrench or restart their education all over again. Okay, you've seen people who drop out from schools and colleges, right? There are people who drop out from schools and colleges, but then they again come back to complete their education. Okay, they come back to to I've seen people, yes, I've seen people, they have dropped out from college, say 5 years back, and then all of a sudden they have this urge to complete their education because they want the security through that education. Okay, so Rahu is also a foreigner, and it might indicate that the educational credentials of the natives, they are from another country, or the native may be interested in a subject area from a foreign culture, or a foreign teacher may play a significant role in the education of a native, by teaching, by making him or her learn a non-traditional subject. Okay, now less positively, since Rahu is a posture, it may suggest that the native's education isn't entirely legitimate, or it is being misrepresented for the sake of residency, status, or employment. You've seen people who get fake degrees, who get fake PhDs. Okay, this is about Rahu in the fourth. All right. But then, even under the best of circumstances, Rahu's presence in the fourth can establish a drive for education, maybe a passion for schooling and academic accomplishments. Okay, and these people, they often are found seeking status and prestige through successive certificates, diplomas, and degrees. Okay, so as Rahu is the hunger that is never satisfied, so these people have the idea of the more the better. Okay, so that is Rahu in the fourth. I think we have covered a lot of ground. Yes, and if you have any doubts, you can always ask me out. Okay, I don't think there are any doubts. All right, then. Thank you very much for joining. It got really late today because of some, some technical glitches here and there. We'll have the Jyotish Foundation class tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Okay. See you then. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Om Gurave Namah.